I never wore a watch ever. Like, not that I can recall in my life. I didn't know anybody who wore a watch. Nobody in my family wore one. So I got on this menswear wave, and I found on Instagram, the early days of Instagram, the watch community was there. And confused because we were taking like these wrist shots, right? Like, why? Who
Yeah, right,
cares?
right, right.
But people were so passionate. They were so passionate. And I wanted to understand, like, okay, watches are part of fashion, even though like the industries really are very separate. But as a consumer, they make so much sense together. So I wanted to explore what that was, why people cared about it. So I put out a call on Instagram for people to share their favorite watch, along with the story of why that was their favorite watch. And I painted 100 watches in 100 days and got 100 stories of why watches are interesting. And, from there I got the bug, and I've been in on it ever since.
I really feel, Matt, like the serendipity of, I think, of a story like yours to kind of come along at the perfect time for this.
Mm,
I remember, I like, what was it, maybe 2010, 11, kind of when a lot of this menswear stuff started to pick up. Like you said, about 10, 15 years ago, maybe. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But
sounds right. Yeah.
but for that to happen at the same time that Instagram is really, really taking off, as well as the watch community is coming out of the dark corners of the internet that everybody used to live
Right.
on, and then to come along and have the ability to, I don't want to say capitalize because it sounds cheap, but utilize the skills that you have and sort of find your way into this industry is really a cool serendipitous thing. I remember, for me, the journey into watches and into, because when you're 14 you don't care how you dress or anything like that, but
Yeah.
as I was getting older and sort of, coinciding with this new wave of menswear and men's fashion on the internet, for me the catalyst was kind of James Bond. I don't know if
Mm,
you were ever into any of the Bond stuff. There's a couple websites out there, how to get this look from this movie, without spending $500 on a Sunspot polo.
yeah.
And so as a teenager, me and my brother, that was huge for us. And
Mm,
learning about cars, and that kind of led into Formula One, and learning how to dress well, and that led into watches and other things like that. I think for people that, especially men who maybe never really cared, but people who have the interest in that, that was a really interesting time on the internet to experience all of these things sort of in one go. I'm trying to think of a couple people that you may have drawn influence from, or met. I know we've talked before about the sartorialist, or people like Robert Spangle at Thousand Yard
yeah.
Style. Did you
Yeah.
find yourself kind of coming up around the same time as these guys? I mean, who was active in the space when you were starting?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I was kind of, I felt like I was in my own world. I was in Atlanta at the time, and my entree into the universe was Tumblr. Tumblr
Mm.
was where hashtag menswear began. That was the epicenter of menswear in the world. So that's where I jumped on, and I didn't know anybody, and I discovered a small community in Atlanta of people who were interested. And so that was really nice. And online, obviously, the sartorialist at that point, this was probably 2011 or 12. He was established, maybe not, he didn't hit his heights yet, but established, well known at that point. And yes, that was definitely inspiration for me. Robert Spangle, I learned about years later, probably more along the lines of my experience at PT Uomo. And then, I mean, people like Denny Balmaceda in New York, in terms of fashion. This kid is, I call him a kid because I knew him uh, way back when, like 10 years ago. That feels like a long time now.
It's a
And
it's a decade.
yeah, that's a long time. Uh, I mean, he can dress anything. He just knows his stuff. Very knowledgeable about fashion and its history, and he can just wear everything. He's an inspiration. He's always been an inspiration, at least in terms of style. And then with watches, oh man, who? I'm trying to really think of inspirations for me in the watch world. I will say
Sure.
a name like Caroline Coleman.
Mm.
She really helped shepherd me along back in the IW magazine days,
Oh
when
yeah, yeah.
Govberg was really involved in IW. Caroline was a great influence for me. And then Andrew McCutcheon from Time and Tide,
Oh yeah,
really
yeah, yeah, for sure.
a major factor in me playing a role in the watch world.
That's really cool. So, as you're making these contacts and you're establishing yourself in the fashion world and the watch world, I know you've done some work for people like Brew Watches and Frederic Constant. So, could you talk a little bit about how those relationships were established? Was that sort of a, meeting them through people like Andrew, or were these companies
Hmm.
reaching out to you to come in and work for them?
I mean, Brew Watches, Jonathan Ferrer, that's its own specific story. That's also way back, almost a decade ago. He was, I'm starting, I think, to develop Brew Watches, and he loved coffee, and I loved coffee, and we connected via Instagram. And then I visited New York, and we got together, and I don't know, I've just kind of been there along the path. Mostly, from the outside looking in, but I've gotten to observe and own a few of his watches as he's grown up. And then obviously the metric chronograph came out and he exploded. And just really,
Oh yeah,
everybody knows. I mean, look, if I can wear the same watch that Idris Elba is wearing, like that makes me a happy person. And it's made this whole brew watch ride, I mean, kind of insane. To go from
yeah,
just meeting in a coffee shop, I'm designing some watch, to all of these really cool, interesting people wanting to wear his watches. I love being a part of that story. But Jonathan, yeah, Jonathan's just an amazing guy who his enthusiasm is so authentic. His personality is all about getting to know and appreciate people. There's not a person I've ever met who's even had a hint of anything bad to say about Jonathan, and it's part of what makes everything about Brew Watches amazing. And then, something like Frederic Constant, I think I've been around for a while, so people have known about me for a long time for this reason or that reason. Back in the day, I went to Baselworld, RIP, and did some promotional work with Bulova. And so, you get to know that family of watches that are now under Citizen.
hmm
Uh, and so, yeah, it just evolves. So Frederic Constant's also under that Citizen umbrella, and you meet people over time. It's a small world in reality.